So I don't know if you saw this interview the other day between Anthony Edwards and Charles Barkley, but basically the Minnesota Timberwolves have made the conference finals for the first time in 20 years. And Chuck was like, I hadn't been to Minnesota in about 20 years. And Anthony Edwards was just like, bring your ass. And that has been taken off on social media. And I've decided that that is just going to be our new tagline for the show. You want to talk about dad stuff? Bring your ass.
Yeah, I saw the hat, but I had no idea where it came from.
Yeah, it's the new slogan. Bring your
Love
ass.
it. Bring your ass. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Working on the Dad Pod. Today, we are going to be working on competition. What does that mean? Are we about to fight? I don't know. But before we get into that, I want to remind you all to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can find our page. Go to our website, workingonthedadpod.com. You'll be able to find our YouTube link, all the new episodes there. You can listen to us if you are weird and don't want to see our faces and are just into audio only. Listen to us at Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Point is, we're here. We're happy to be here. And this is our Memorial Day, leading up to Memorial Day weekend episode. So let's kick off the summer in the right way. Alex, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I was going to compliment you on that nice, tight, succinct open, and then it just
it was terrible.
going off the rails.
Totally off the rails. Feeling pretty good.
Yeah. I'm doing good. It was the last day of school. Last day of school
right.
for technically both my kids. My son's last day was yesterday because it doesn't go on Thursdays, but we got to go back tomorrow because graduation is not on a school day. It's the day after school closes. So it's like, hey, hang out with your kids until 10:30, then come on over, drop them off early, then come back.
Right.
And no, we don't have childcare available. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, no, that sounds similar to last week when we had parent-teacher conferences, and it annoys me every time, but they make it a half day of school, and you have to pick all the kids up. You have to get your own childcare, and it's just kind of like every class has at least a co-teacher. Why don't you just take all the co-teachers, all the kids, split some in the playground, some in the gym, everybody plays, and we meet with the lead teachers and pick our kids up normal time. That would make the most sense. But unfortunately, that's not what they do.
So, yeah, I would even be down with that, for a graduation strategy, right? Because I got to take my son.
Also true. Right.
Everybody that we would volunteer or ask or whatever to care for him is going to go to the graduation. So, yeah.
Right.
Anyway, should we do some story time?
Yeah, so since I'm already going off the rails, I want to share that my story time actually was off the rails. Right. Went off the rails yesterday. So yesterday, instead of our normal Pancake Wednesday dinner, one of the other moms in my younger daughter's class got a fundraiser at a local restaurant to go to a charity. So she intimidated us all to go. So we went, we changed our dinner plan. We did takeout. And I was saying to my wife, who always makes the pancakes, I said, you know what I kind of like about Pancake Wednesday, which got bumped to today? I said, I'm always okay to take my initial 3 or 4 pancakes, and then I'm done eating them because they're not so good that I want to keep stuffing my face. And she said, my pancakes aren't good. And I said, no, you make them as great as one could possibly make non-scratch pancakes. And then she said, excuse me? And I said, you make the pancakes as the Bisquick gods intended. And then she just started crying. And it was great. I totally nailed all of that. And now I said, wow. Yeah, I was like, man, these pancakes are really good. And she's like, too much effort. I don't believe you.
And do too much, do less.
Yep. I basically ruined pancakes for the family. So
wow.
Yeah. Everything I said was better than the previous statement. So it was great. It was good.
No, you definitely nailed that. I can also see that when my wife and I gave you pancake lessons 10 years ago, that none of that stuck. So,
well, the thing is, there is the Alpern family pancake curse, which I,
is only real if you believe it.
It's a real curse. It's a real curse.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to your wife. I'm sure your pancakes are lovely. I grew up on Bisquick pancakes. They're fantastic.
There's nothing wrong with Bisquick. I don't know.
They're not scratch pancakes. I can agree with that, but like I'm not saying that to someone who just made me Bisquick pancakes.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was awesome. I nailed it.
My wife makes from scratch pancakes every weekend. So sorry to you. Sorry to everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
But for me, we've had this in our life. We've had like a similarly offensive thing going on, but only this is my story, but it's not with somebody who recognizes that it's as offensive as it is, right? Because it's my son, not my wife or my daughter, and because he's 2 and he's just always been this second kid, right? You know this with your second daughter, but this idea of second kidding where like, every milestone they hit, you're absolutely unequivocally proud of them. But at the same time, you're like, I've seen this movie before, right? And you also do a little bit of comparison between the first kid, the second kid, to make sure the second kid's getting along with the, forget what the doctors and the trends and the laws of averages say. Like your first child has set an average for the household, and your second child is now trying to meet that average, not what the pediatrician says, right? We've all probably experienced this on some level. Well, with my son, he's a very quiet kid, and he's sweet and he's nice, but he has very, very often been, just because he's so quiet, like not making a lot of noise. And I think my daughter has always been the high energy kid, always speaking her mind, talking super early, all those kinds of things. And so my daughter's intelligence has always shown through. And I think as our firstborn kid, we were always like focused on like, oh, is she learning enough? Is she progressing enough? Is she smart enough? And the answer is like, yes, she's a smart kid. She does well in school so far. She's obviously only through pre-kindergarten, so I don't have a whole heck of a lot to go on. But like, I know she can read, and like, that's a pretty good barometer. But my son has started doing things recently, just like figuring out puzzles and solutions to problems and problem solving, how he wants to get something that he's trying to get. And I keep having these epiphanies, and my wife has had them too, where we go, this kid's kind of smart and like can kind of do things. And it's just the most obvious dumb thing about your younger kid, but you're kind of like, you used to be a sack of potatoes. Look at you go, And we may have literally called him a sack of potatoes in his younger years. But that's kind of my story time, is we've been having this epiphany that like, it's dawning on us. Oh, this second kid is got some talents here. It's not without. He's not just window dressing. He's not just there to sit still and look pretty. That's been a fun little sort of epiphany of like, look at you go, little man. And I think it's exacerbated more now because he has different interests. He's getting to an age where it's not always just what his sister wants to do or what I want to do. He's getting his own ideas and his own interests and his own things. So it's probably helping it.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. Well, I actually think you're kind of funny sometimes. So, like sometimes we just get that realization and it's great. So.
Yeah. Should we get into working on competition?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to talk about this is because my Vornado daughter really has started to get into games. Her favorites are Zingo, which is like super competitive, aggressive bingo matching. She likes this game called Uncle Wiggly, which is just a simple, go from point A to point B 100 steps, draw cards, you move, sometimes you go backwards. It's like a really uncomplicated Chutes and Ladders if Chutes and Ladders were in fact complicated. And then yeah, pretty much. And then
you could just call it Chutes and Ladders.
I could, but it's not Chutes and Ladders because there aren't either. Okay. Anyway, there's today we played Uno, and I also tried to teach her Go Fish today. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is because she is very competitive, but has also veered into a little bit of cheating. And I want her to be competitive. I want her to know the importance of winning, but I also think that cheating is wrong. And if she can't win fairly, then, she just needs to practice and get better. And when I say, how does a 4.5-year-old cheat? Well, she knows that 20 is the biggest card to move up in Uncle Wiggly. So when her mom and I are not there yet, when she wants to set it up, when we say we'll be there in a minute, sometimes she puts the 20 on top of the draw pile and then says, I'm going first. And then she goes, ooh, mommy, look, 20. I put it there, and outs herself as a cheater. So,
so she's not good at cheating.
Yeah, so she's like bad at cheating. So
she's thought through everything, and then she just face plants on the landing.
Exactly. So, like, I know there's a belief system out there where if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And, I could get on board with that. But if you're not good at cheating, you might as well just get good at the thing you're trying to cheat. So, how about you? Where are you guys in your family with kids and games and competition and fun stuff?
So I think we do a lot of board games. It's kind of like the game you described. It's like a little less complicated version. If it was complicated, it's called Chutes and Ladders. We have the Disney Princess edition. We also play Candyland. That's a big one in our house. And we have another game called It's a Small World. I don't know why I said it like it. Nobody's ever heard of this. You heard of the Disney ride. It's based on the Disney ride. It's a Disney board game based on the Disney ride.
It's a board game after all.
Yeah, it's I kind of hate it. Sure. You're literally taking a boat through the different rooms. Like it's got like a cross section of rooms like this, and you're weaving through the various rooms in your boat, and you're like drawing the number of cards for each space that you go. How many spaces you go is dictated by your turn. You go one space each turn, and there might be a card on there. You draw the cards, and you see if those cards are in the room you're in. If not, you hold on to them. If yes, you withdraw them into your pile, and all this kind of stuff. It's a little simple, but it's just not for me. Yet we play
For those of you on audio only, Alex made a big X with his arms. It was really good podcasting. So
yeah, no, that's elite podcasting right there. Yeah. But you guys can look it up. It's a Small World game. But my daughter has gotten better about losing.
Okay.
Over the years. When she was 3 or 4, she did not take it well. And I made a decision fairly early on that I was not going to cave to the behavior. That it was like, if we're going to play the right way, especially something like Chutes and Ladders, right? Where I'm like, this is 100% chance. Like, I don't care if you didn't spin what you wanted to spin, like she'll try to manipulate the spinner so she won't land on the chute that's coming up or something.
Sure.
And there are some exceptions I will make to like some of the toddlerisms, as I call it, of playing a game. Like when we play Candyland or Chutes and Ladders, a game where when the first person arrives, you technically win, but everybody else could still arrive at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody has to finish, or at least everybody that wants to finish.
Yeah.
Usually, if one parent is lagging behind, we'll just go ahead and call it because everybody else is no longer invested anyway, especially not the parent who's lagging behind.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't like losing, but she's okay if she wins second or wins third.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
That's an accommodation, but one of the best games that I have played with my daughter to get her over the winning and losing real quick is tic-tac-toe because of the speed of the game. Because all you need is a sheet of paper and a pencil. You don't like it, you're done. It can be over in 20 seconds, and then you can try again. You can start the whole game over, and you can win again. And I've even gotten an app on my phone. So sometimes when it's just me and her and we're sitting somewhere waiting for something, I might whip it out so we can play, back and forth. And I think that game, because of the speed, at least in my experience, has really helped my daughter with the whole winning and losing because it's just so over. And then you can expand it to bigger things. But for me, where I really struggle in my messaging with competition, right? Because I haven't had a lot of like egregious cheating. I'm sure she's tried it. And I think it's tough within the context of like board games and things like that, where, it's just, you've got a lot of, you've got, I don't know, you've got a lot of moving parts and a lot of rules. And I think a lot of those things can be tough for kids to conceptualize and understand the right and wrong. And it's like, the point is for me to win, right? The point is for me to win. So I should do everything in my power to do that. And I think that's a natural human reaction when you can't understand, like, no, there are guardrails to how you have to win. And I think that can sort of be a foreign concept of like, you first pick up a bat and a ball, you're trying to hit the ball with the bat. And then you move to Little League and they tell you, well, if you hit it past this angle or this angle, it's a foul and it doesn't count. And now you've got to like recalibrate what success is. So I think some of that's going on. But what I've really just tried to do and struggle with is the idea of they're focused on results. They want to win. And I'm like, that's not a bad thing. Like you said, I think competition is important. I don't believe in the whole concept of like everybody should get a trophy. But I also believe that like we should reward effort and not just results, right? It's this complicated web. And that's what I struggle with, because it's like you're going to compete once you get into school, once you get on school teams, once you get into try to get into college, once you're in college competing for, various things, student government elections, your first job, every job after that, there is competition everywhere in your life. And that's not going to stop. And so I don't want to like put the blinders on and be like, it's just okay if you try really, really hard, because I think that effort has to be focused. But I'm also a big believer, for all you sports fans out there, of sort of the Nick Saban. I don't know if he's the only one that's popularized it, but obviously he's very successful at it, of focusing on the process and the results will come. And he's got a lot of results to back up his process. But and so I want my kids to focus on the work, because it's the same with my daughter. My daughter is bright. She gets concepts easily. But if she doesn't, she tends to struggle and get frustrated because she has to work. And so I try to lead that through things of like, you can always control your effort. You cannot always control the results of that effort. But if you're giving your best effort and you are working hard at getting better, and this is a lot to say about Chutes and Ladders because it's not really applicable to just Chutes and Ladders, but like in life, it's like you put in the work so that when it translates to maybe you're playing soccer or softball or whatever, and you want to get better at it, that like the work is what's going to pay off, not just hoping that next time goes different.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's one of those things where, you always want it to be fun. You want them to learn. You want them to enjoy the experience and how it becomes a, family event. But so tonight, and I guess this could have been story time, but it was just too perfect for content creation. We played a game of Uno, and it was me, my wife, and the Vornado. The toddler, the almost 2-year-old, was roaming around playing with some other deck of cards. And I won the game of Uno pretty successfully out of the three of us. I just straight up dominated, played both of them. It was a pretty impressive feat, I'm not gonna lie. And then because tonight was pancake night, my wife handed me her hand, and she went and made pancakes. And then it became a one-on-one for second place. I got second place too. I really just played to my daughter's strengths and weaknesses in this game of Uno. But she did finish third, and I told her I was proud of her because she did understand the rules. But then she saw the other deck of cards, which was a normal deck of playing cards, and the almost 2-year-old was roaming around, roamed into the kitchen, wanted to see what her mom was doing. So I said, why don't we try playing a game of Go Fish? And we played the full set where you have to get 4 of a kind instead of just pairs, 2 of a kind. And I said, this first game will be like a practice round, and, I'll help you through it. She could not really hold the cards in a fan, so she kept putting her cards down face up, and I basically saw her whole hand. And at one point, I couldn't help that it bled. And I didn't feel good about this, but I ended up winning, I think, 10 pairs to 3 pairs. I think that's correct math for a 52. 52.
So that checks out.
Sure. But the point is, I wasn't the best myself at honest gameplay, but this wasn't that I cheated. I just took advantage of poor performance.
Yeah, that's some morally gray baloney. Grade A morally gray baloney.
I could not help that she just kept putting her cards on
You absolutely could teach your daughter how to protect her cards.
I was trying to. I even would hand her them fanned out, and then she'd go and like put great podcasting. I made the fan sign, and then I illustrated her closing.
You gotta teach her like the Texas Hold'em peek. Right, she lays them all face down and do the Texas Hold'em peek.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Her hands can't,
Yeah, no, I didn't even
hold all the cards. That might be a solution where she doesn't have to, do it as discreetly as they're doing it, in Vegas or something. But
that's a really good idea.
The cards one at a time to think of what she might want.
I think
she would have to gamify it a little bit, so she wouldn't pick up one card and go, do you have any 2s, right? Or something like that. But then again, if she's asking about it, even when they're fanned out, she's got it. So
that's a really good, it's probably something I forgot because over the pandemic, it was just video poker for me. So there was never any actual technique there. So anyway, I guess the moral of my story there is that maybe I'm not the best person to teach card integrity, but I do appreciate that I was victorious over a 4-year-old. So
and I think that this is something that I was talking to a friend about right before we recorded. We have a friend of ours that tends to use my wife's studio to work in the evenings as a quiet, safe, kid-free space to work, which her house is not. But I was talking to her right before we came on, and one thing I said was just, I think beating your parents is like a rite of passage that every kid should go through. Whether that thing is, beating your dad at basketball, or, whether it's beating them at Go Fish or checkers or chess or whatever the strategy game is. I think there has to be either some strategy or some learned skill, physical or mental. But beating your parents is like this rite of passage, right? Like running faster than your parents, because kids, this is a thing all the time. My daughter always wants to race, right? She'll always be like, let's race. And then I start running, and then she's like, stop.
Right.
Because I'm running too fast. Because I'm like, I don't need to sprint here, but like, I'm not going to put on the brakes for you. You want to race? Like, we'll race. And you get fast enough to beat me, congratulations. I'm not that fast. It's not a high bar. So like, come on.
Yeah. The 2 weekends ago was just at my daughter's 4-year-old 1 hour Sunday afternoon soccer practice. They were playing freeze tag where all of the kids on the team would kick their soccer balls, and we were down a couple coaches that day. So I happened to be there, and they said, would you be one of the freeze tag coaches? So we're running on the field, and
you ripped off your warm-ups, popped out your whistle, and said, I
volunteer, like Katniss Everdeen. And I get there, and so the kids are kicking the ball, and if they kick the ball at the coach, you're frozen until another coach comes to get you. About 5 minutes into playing, I realized I had not let any of them get me, and I kept freeing the coaches. And I wasn't running that fast, but I was very intent on not getting frozen. And then it hit me that this is not about me. And I let up just a little bit.
I'm starting to wonder where your daughter gets it from and why you may be having some issues with competition, Ethan.
It's definitely a me problem, but I do still think that after my 35+ years of life, that the skills I have acquired over the years in doing things the right way and learning how to play properly and strategically outmatching my opponents is my rite of passage. And like you said, one day she will beat me, and that'll be the greatest
play against 4 and 5-year-olds.
I can play against whoever I want. It's all about the overall record.
Well, I look like Michael Jordan. You give me a bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds and like a 7.5-foot rim, man.
Yeah, it was pretty great. It's pretty great. I should get on. I should play more hoops with the youths, but it's anyway. Yes, I think we've just realized that I am the problem, and maybe it's not my kid at all. But I think it is. Go ahead.
They're gonna get it from us, right? They're gonna get our competitive streaks. They're gonna get the things we care about. It's the reason that whatever that rite of passage thing is, like for me, I don't know that it was one thing, but there are always, because my dad and I did a lot of different sports together, and the one that would be most obvious that we played the most often was golf. But like golf's a different animal, and I think golf is a great if you have the means and the interest and all that stuff to play golf with your kids, I think golf is one of those great ones to be a litmus test of like, can I beat dad? Because there are built-in ways to make the game easier, just shorter tees, right? And things like that. And so when I was a kid, I beat my dad pretty young. It was before I was big enough and strong enough to outdrive him. It was just I was playing on a shorter course. And I'd get the ball to the hole in the same number of shots he did. And then when you're putting, it really doesn't matter how big and strong you are. So I think there are those, but I do think it is something important for kids, right? Of this idea of fostering competition, but doing it in a healthy way where like you teach them that, yes, it's great to win and it's great to see your hard work pay off. But also this idea coming back to the effort of trying your best. If you try your best, you don't hang your head, because it's not about the results. The results are a nice potential outcome from putting in the hard work, and the pride should come from the hard work. And that's like such a tough needle to thread because it transcends to everything, where it's just like shifting your perspective of like, I'm not proud of you because you got into Harvard or whatever school. I'm proud of you because you worked hard enough that they saw how much work you had put in. Right. And it's like such a different thing of like, I'm not proud of the accomplishment because maybe whatever the particular accomplishment in and of itself, or like, I'm proud of you because you made the swim team. Right. And it's like, no, I'm proud of you because you worked really hard and that hard work paid off. Right. And I think that's such a different mindset of like, how we message things to our kids and how we shift where our pride is actually coming from. Because I think that honestly, the way I'm reframing those things is probably actually closer to people's true feelings of like, I'm proud that this acknowledgement is showcasing the accomplishment, like all the work you've put in, right? Getting into a college, getting a good job. Like, it's not about like the actual, like in some of those cases, it's maybe about nailing the interview or whatever, but it's pride for all the hard work paying off. I think in a lot of cases, I'm proud of you for getting an A on the test. It's like, I'm not proud of you for bucking up and filling in the right Scantron bubbles. I'm proud of you for absorbing the material and working hard and being able to produce it. It's
but no, and I agree with you. I think at the core, yes, but ultimately we are in a results oriented society, whether that be monetarily, whether that be winning and losing. The results sometimes are the only way to indicate that you achieved what you set out to achieve. And it's unfortunate that is just how it's looked at.
Yeah, it's not so much that I think that you should just be okay with being a perennial loser, right? Like, you work hard and you never get any results from it. I think at a certain point of a lack of results, it should inform you that like the process needs changing because maybe the goal isn't attainable. That's like if I went out there tomorrow and said, Ethan, my goal is to bench 405 pounds. And I told you what I bench right now, and it's not half that. And I'm like, I'm going to do that by the end of the year. That is silly. And I can put in hard work and make it to the gym every day and do the best bench press program that's ever been created to blow up my bench press, and it will not get to 4 plates on each side. That's just not going to happen by the end of this calendar year, and it probably wouldn't happen by the end of the next one or the one after that, if we're being perfectly honest. All right. But it is something that is just like, that's sort of the thing. And maybe that is like, oh, you're really good at youth soccer. And you're like, I think I should try and get a college scholarship. And maybe, you start playing in travel ball or whatever it is that they do to get scouted. And it's like, okay, I'm not as good as I thought. I'm not getting a starting spot. And I think that's where there has to be building in that self-reflection with yourself and your kids as this, because obviously this conversation has moved way past kids playing Candyland or whatever.
Sure.
But like how that sets them up for the future trials and tribulations that matter, because Candyland doesn't matter, right? Unless you're in a very, very competitive household where like board games are sacrosanct, then maybe it really, really, really matters. But like Candyland, small potatoes. So
yeah, I think board games, card games, these are they're teaching, they're tools for teaching
in the driveway, going out and playing around with your parents.
Yeah, they're tools and instruments used for teaching the concept of working hard and achieving something at the end of it. And it's a more fun way than us having to be the teachers when they're at school.
And I think the other way to also do it is to find other ways to measure success too, right? So even bringing it back to the board game analogy, right? Like with having someone win second, right? Like everybody finishing, or I win second, I win third, and like feeling like they're on the podium. We got the Summer Olympics coming up. You can always reference the podium and like getting top 3 and all those kinds of things. And I think that can help. And then you can also do, especially with those kinds of games, right, of like Chutes and Ladders or Candyland, where there is no strategy involved.
Right.
You get what you get, you move there and you go.
And that's luck, that's chance, that's life.
Where my skill, my experience, and my physical ability can in no way provide me an advantage over someone else playing by the exact same rule set. And I think playing those games gives them more opportunities to see competition. It gives them more opportunities to win. But the trade-off there becomes it's less about the work, because the work is there is no work, thought process, thinking it through, trying to get better at Candyland.
Well, Yes and no. I mean, I think with stuff like Uncle Wiggily and Candyland, where it really is literally the luck of the draw, what you're instilling there and teaching is how do you react to what life throws at you. Yes, it's in the context of the
that there's not like I'm saying there's lessons
there's less skill. It's not
right,
skill
right, because there's less skill. The work and preparation and trying to get better. Like, I don't think someone can get better at performing Candyland, right? Is what I'm saying. And so that is the trade-off. Like, you can play some things with them that give them that sense of winning and victory. But I also think that core value of like working hard is important too. And you don't, but it's finding that balance, because you don't want to just challenge them with something like, okay, 4-year-old, like the thing we're going to do is every Sunday, we're going to do a foot race until you beat me in 10 years. Right. That is like, they've got to stick to that process for a decade to get any like victory. And so it's sort of finding the balance between those things of like, we're going to play one-on-one basketball and I'm going to go all out until you can actually beat me first to 11 by ones. Right. And it's just like, those kinds of standards are probably tough. So mix it in with a game of horse or something that lowers that gap.
Right. Yeah. Feel that. Well, this was useful. I learned a lot of unhealthy self-reflection about the way I compete with kids. So that's good. Yeah. Would you like to work on the dad bod with me?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Can we go first or second?
You go second. I'm just gonna say I weighed myself full nude right before this podcast, like I normally do, and
I love you having to tell people that you're fully nude every time.
I have to.
It's a juicy treat.
It's my brand.
Don't include it in the after photos.
Right, I won't.
I've seen a photo
only for our
Twitter. I saw a photo on Twitter where basically a guy was like really proud of himself and took a picture of his scale, and like he was like, I've lost like 20 kilograms this year, gonna keep it going. But then you notice like it's a glass scale in the reflection, and the guy's just like completely nude, and it's just looking straight up. And then the first reply is like, F, how do you delete a Twitter post?
Oh boy. Yeah, no, that's don't
post any shots of the scale with you still on it. Maybe do a screenshot from the app.
Yeah, no, that's only for people who subscribe to us on OnlyFans. And yeah.
We're launching YouTube Premium, folks.
Exactly. So I ended up exactly where I was last week. I was 188 last week, on 188.0. I am still 188.0. I'm not thrilled about that, but I do see where I went wrong. I mentioned yesterday that instead of Pancake Wednesday, we went to that restaurant for the fundraiser. I also didn't, I've only had a chance to jog one day this week. So far out of the 4 possible work days, because there was one day in the city, then I jogged Tuesday, then yesterday my younger kid stayed home because she had a lot going on here and I wasn't sure what it was, so I didn't want to get any of the other kids sick. She was totally fine. So I didn't have the opportunity to go out yesterday on my own. And then today, I just lost control of my schedule today with the long weekend coming up. But, I have been still very conscious of the amount of food I'm putting in my body. So with all that, to end up without any change, great. Not what I want, but I still think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, nice. So last week for me, I was 182.4. This week, I'm 181.8. So loss of 0.6, which I feel good about. Biggest difference that I had sort of noticed, right? Like I had mentioned over the last couple of weeks, like I was doing the process, right? Back to the process and not seeing the results. And like, do you reevaluate the process? And I didn't do anything drastic. I just said, I need to get more steps in. Like my steps have been low. And So I went out for a few more walks, right? And it can be as simple as that, right? Because when we're talking about half a pound, we're talking about, finding a way to cut out about 1,750 calories over the course of the week. And, a walk's probably going to burn 100, 150 calories, something like that. And just stepping more, it can add up, So I think that's just something I'll keep taking with me. That's sometimes tough, right? If I've got a lot going on at work, maybe I'm not able to go out for a 30-minute walk like my wife and I sometimes do after lunch. Plus it's getting hotter. But we have like 2 walking routes. We have a 15-minute one. And if we don't make the turn, then we turn into a 30-minute one. And like, I never take the 15-minute one because I'm like, if I'm not going to get at least 30 minutes, what's the point? And like, that's kind of dumb thinking. So I'll probably change that too and try to weave in some more 15-minute walks here and there, possibly by myself as the heat gets up there, going a little bit more in the morning.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, good week for you. Fine week for me. For all y'all listening or watching, ideally, I want to thank you again for coming to work on the Dad Pod with us. For those of you watching, that should be up pretty soon. For those of you listening, it'll be tomorrow. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube.
And then next week, if you're looking for something to watch or listen to, you can watch our podcast, listen to our podcast, and we'll have a lot of watch and listen recommendations because Ethan's going to be out of town next week. So we already pre-recorded some of the things that we are watching, listening, and reading to the media we're consuming next week. I'm working on the Dad Pod.
Yeah. Good plug. And see you all next weeky deeky as I pull up the outro.
Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.